Go and hello everybody and welcome to another replay analysis. I was quite lucky to hook up with epicdeath again. Hey Epic.
Hey man, g'day guys. I hope you're all doing well.
Yeah, and I sent my latest replays to Epic, and yeah, I'm happy that he will review them.
Yeah, so for a little bit of context, I haven't watched these yet either, so I'm going in blind as well. But yeah, just get into this one, I suppose. Okay. Oh yeah, this is a fun roll to start with. A really good carry roll, actually. So I can look at your team, but just quickly, I see this immediately. I'm like, okay, so I got Slave, which is pretty stable, has the option to overbuild. Magna, which is a great aura. Thunderbird, which is mid 15. Blaster, which if you need extra frontline, or anti 14, and then null, so you can like damage 10 and probably kill a boss with like 7-4. So that's a really crazy roll. Okay, just looking at the teammate quickly, got Aqua, Hydra, so another like carry oriented roll. This roll's decent, but it probably just can push and then clock TS. Okay, so it's like, it's kind of difficult. It's weird, right? Because your roll's really good, but it's like he probably just wants to overbuild his roll. He needs to get fed. Like, this is the best role on the team. I think it's probably a little bit better than yours.
Yeah.
And then he can kind of play for the team. It'll be interesting to see where the teamwork comes in. Okay, so anyway, your Wisps. He plays Aqua. That's actually important to pay attention to because I think some people would probably try and overbuild with Rider, even though it's not a good idea generally, I wouldn't say. With that role at least. Okay.
I prefer the 2 slave master instead of the 1 slave master.
Okay, that's what I was going to comment on. Personally, I don't like it very much, especially with like mixed with Sprite. And I would just try and get as much gold as possible with servants behind, and then potentially you have the option of mixing Sprite for 4. So you can actually overbuild for 7 with this roll as well. The stack Slave Master, some servants, and like 3 Thunderbirds is actually quite a good hold. Which you probably aren't going for this game. Just looking at
Yeah,
what your teammates have got, but it's an option.
this game is quite weird, and it's one of my worst games from the last games I have played, because we go pretty much all in really quick, and I overbuild. I leak on some levels, like tactical leak, and then I overbuild on some levels because we go all in, and it's not super efficient, but in the end, the strategy overall, the calling, worked out.
Yeah, I mean, something can go wrong or not work, but still be a good decision, if that makes sense, we'll see.
Yeah.
Also, this guy late rerolled, so that's important to note. So you don't have the clock TS overbuild, so that makes it, means it's much more reasonable for you to plan to like play greedy and overbuild, potentially. If you're not like a 3-0 overbuild, you'd probably try and look for like 4-1. Just so you have decent amount of income as well, and just get as fat as possible. So yeah, you basically have the same rolls, except yours is way better. Anyway. So Aqua stays. Malf risks. It's like pretty risky from the Malf. Doesn't really matter, I mean, you're always just building the same way, right? You're fairly slow on 1, which is one of the tells for like potentially a 2-send coming, but even if you weren't, you'd still want to play safe with this roll since it's a carry roll. If you had like the Lumber Lane with Slave Master, which is kind of rare if you're playing Slave Master, honestly, since it tends to be like a bit more of a carry-oriented build. But if you were playing the Lumber Lane, then you might choose to risk it a bit. But yeah, like this, it works nicely. Definitely good decision to stay to 0. It's worth noting specifically on 2, most of the 40 gold tier 2s, like Corrupted Ant, Landlubber, they 3-shot level 2. But Servant has a bit more damage, so it actually 2 shots, which makes Servants a lot better. So specifically on 2, Servant tends to do quite well compared to more Slave Masters. But either way, it doesn't matter. You're like pretty fine with this end. Like a little bit, but not that much. Okay, do you push? You do push. Excellent. This wisp is like interesting. Depending what you're doing, if you're sending 4, I think it's pretty reasonable. With the time, it gets a bit better. But it can be worth it to just stay a little bit lower push with Slave Master. Just get like extra slaves and get money that way, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I see.
It's just kind of a weird unit. It's hard to say which way is correct. And I think the push is totally fine here. Obviously, Lumberjack is better, but you need the servant, so it is hard to judge King Gold, so I won't hold that against you at all. So, okay, looking at red, we know he's going to leak to no send.
Yep. Yeah, we know that. So our plan, I think our plan was leaking. We know that he was leaking, and I don't remember it exactly, but I think we also planned to leak 4 and go 5 or something.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, so leaks into send. Okay, let's 5 now. Fair enough. So if you're planning to leak 3, then someone needs to cover 4 because you guys absolutely suck 4. Underbuilding mouth, double slave. So someone needs to cover. Let's see who ends up doing that. That's also a reasonable. Okay, so you're planning to leak 4. I don't personally like that because you got the best roll. With the exception of the Aqua. So I think the Aqua could potentially go 360 and risk, but actually I think it's his job probably to go 480.
Yeah.
Or the mouth can just leak again, either way. Like 4 mouths and 2 bone warriors is pretty much on the cusp of leaking. So if I were you, I would actually be looking to cover 4 here because they see double slave master mouth from the damage and Aqua.
Yeah.
So, and you don't strictly know what they have, but I believe they sent 3 sets of spirits on 2, which means 3 lanes that are 3-0 level 2. And there was a reasonable amount of time, so they can probably resend like 220 wood on most of them, right? Which means they could Blood Orc or they could Dark Troll Spirit or something, right?
Yeah.
And if everyone is risking on your team, that can be like 60 leaks to King, which is just absolutely game ending, especially for Slave, which likes going mid and actually getting money that way. So I think it actually would have been pretty good for you to just set up an overbuild, but it's a little bit harder to do with double Slave Master. Because if you don't buy the servants to increase the HP armor, they're pretty weak. But you also need like actual damage for 5. So it's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But
I understand.
I think it would still probably would make sense.
Could have mixed in a Sprite here and then Thunderbird 5 or something, right?
Yeah, Sprite for Thunderbird 5 is really good. For sure.
What was confusing to me...
once again, with this second Slave Master, you kind of lack a little bit of frontline.
So,
with that,
when I do the 1 Slave Master build, I think I did one mistake. I added too many small Slave Masters in the back, and I didn't add too many slaves on my big slave. So I just had 1 big slave, and he always walks in front and dies, because I think when you add slaves, he gets armor or something, right?
Yeah, he gets HP and armor.
Yeah,
So
I didn't do that.
Personally, the way I play it, and I'm not sure it's totally correct, but what I do is 1 big slave master, 2 small slaves behind for level 1. That way, both on the wall. That way, you've got the best chance of both of them surviving to get extra money on 1. And also, they just do more damage on 1 if they send warriors.
Okay.
On level 2, assuming I'm staying 2-0, because if I've got more of a carry roll, that's generally the only time I'll keep it on free.
Yeah.
I'll add 2 more slaves in the back, and then give him 1 little servant on his person. That's because, as I said, the actual like servant DPS or damage increment on 2 is quite good. So I want to protect them a bit with the master, and then the master just gets +1 armor, a bit of HP to make him way more resistant against the spirits, because the spirits will probably hit him. And then 3, depending how much I build, but 3, I'll basically just finish off the actual slave master main body. So
Okay.
otherwise he starts dying on 3 and you start losing gold.
I can remember that. So slave master, 2 slaves, 1, 2 slaves, and then up slave on the slave master for
Basically
2.
like one bought slave on 2, and
Yep.
then after that I generally start finishing him off.
Then you go 3 slaves added for 3. Okay.
Yeah, I mean you can mix it up a bit, but I would definitely get at least one more on the main body for level 3.
I was quite surprised. I know 520 value slave master is what you go for level 4. And I just go 480 here and I leak too much.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if the 485.20 was when they cost 35 gold though.
Hmm.
Maybe. Oh no, they always cost 40 gold in the main body. I'm not sure. It's definitely like an unideal. Like it's kind of big.
Yeah, it's too big. It was too big. The good thing is, at least I can send 2 BOs here.
Yeah, for sure. You
And
get a good send, like the time helps, but in the end this is like a lot of leaks.
yeah,
I guess the good
it's
news
even
is
a
you
king
feed the
league.
aqua roll. Like this aqua roll really enjoys feed. So that's something.
So we have at least a big send, but yeah.
Busy riders? Oof, yuck. Don't do that, man.
He tries to cover 5 a little bit because we know they come 5 as well.
Yeah, if you wanted to cover 5, you could grab a couple of riders. Probably off to the side and that would be okay, but un-up necro is just crap.
Yeah.
Rather build 2 aquas than an un-up necro.
The good thing is now we got Stomp. That was quite lucky. And they got him.
It's a good spell indeed. Interesting you go 7 here, 5 here. I don't think it really matters. I would do the sprite behind as well. The sprite's just going to get sniped on every level.
Yeah, it does.
Slave is like semi-slow and sprite always walks up. So chances are it just dies early and you really need the damage because if you think about Slave Master like as a unit, it's tanky and low damage.
Yeah, you want it behind.
So you do need that like help with the damage and Sprite's pretty decent at that. Anyway, you get just a Blood Orc, so you do okay here honestly. Double Master is like reasonable on 5. When there's no Furb in particular, so that's something. The Aqua actually does pretty well. Just a Blood Orc though. They have Immo. I guess that's why they sent so little. Anyway, we'll burn through the KCs, so you see Immo and no mid. You guys will lose 1 heal.
And they lose
Yeah, I guess
4
you just
heals.
keep kinging a bit.
They lose 4 heals and then the game is over. It's kind of unspectacular
Oh, right, wow.
game, but of course you feel really good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
So now now I was thinking like, okay, we want to all in 7. We have no king, no holder, so I just OB now and try to clear as much as I can.
Yeah, you may as well. I mean, if you're planning all in, you know, none of them were mid-5. They probably all pushed because there was time on 3-4 and they looked for like resend race and then just got fucked because immolation.
Yeah.
Slash none of them covered or could cover. So yeah, that makes sense. Basically, based on how they played it in terms of like push and that, you can be pretty confident that all of them pushed, none of them are trying to overbuild. So kind of the only way they win is race. Like they'd probably just die even if they have max king. As long as you send some muggles. So I would be just looking to kill them here. I think it's honestly pretty safe. It's basically impossible for you to lose a race with 4 stomps and 3 heals.
Yeah.
So the only question is if they somehow manage to survive, but I think that's just unrealistic if you full send. Considering what happened on level 5. The nice thing about 5 and 7, right? The same Same armor type, so I think you'd be pretty surprised to see no one even clearing on 5, and then someone turning up mid on 7, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they had one pink was 6-0 or something. But we sent
Yeah.
we sent 600 lumber each.
But like this is just it's just nothing.
Yeah, I know.
It's Nolo.
Necrono frontline.
I know the game is ending here, but this polar is still like ridiculously far back.
Yeah, I always place it in the back. Because it always runs in front and dies.
That's way too far. Also, one thing you could do is put a knoll in front of the Thunderbird
Ah, yeah.
to try and drag your melee units in front of it, but it doesn't really matter. It probably doesn't fix the issue either. Personally, I would have put the polar next to the Thunderbird. That would have, I think,
in front of the slave?
made me at least pretty sure it would die last. But yeah, you did well. Hagen's build is generally pretty good. But yeah, they're dead anyway.
Yeah, but it's good that you told me your slave master start. I think I can take it as a basic information and adapt if I need it.
Yeah, I find it works well.
Mm-hmm.
It works well for me at least. But you know, in the end, like, just play around with it, see what you like, what you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to mix slave master early a couple of times, but I've never really found any success with it personally.
Me neither.
Like starting with infantry and slave master level 1, for example, or like infantry and servants into slave master level 2, things like that. It's just never felt good yet.
I had the same. Also try to mix it a little bit, but after the early levels to be better on 8, but nothing really works.
Yeah, I mean you can mix it starting from level 4 is fine, but it's honestly just bloody good on 1 to 3. So well, 2 and 3.
Okay, that's
Okay,
a privateer game.
Just a privateer. Check your team real quick. So he's Lord with privateer. He's zombie with privateer. And he is
Sprite prisoner.
probably reroll. I don't know. You could play this. Like if you're confident with this role, like you can play Sprite veteran. You can even play like TS veteran overbuild.
I really
so
like
you can do a
prisoner.
couple things with this.
Do you like prisoner?
No, I hate prisoner.
It's a 2-0 start, right? For YOLO.
Yeah, it's 2-0 start. It's just kind of bad on every level.
Really?
I mean, it's like, so let's say you do the Maverick build. So you're risking 2, you're like okay on 3, but you probably leak to a Blood Orc. You're pretty good on 4. You generally end up like 630 value on 5, which is just not very good. Like, yeah, you're mid 6th then, but you're 630 value, so whatever. It's fine on 8, it's bad on 9, or it's like whatever in the mid game. I don't know. I think it's just a really average YOLO.
It's 2-0
I would
on
much rather
3.
play like Sprite veteran mix.
Okay.
So you can do something like 2 sprites, 1 Peewee, 3-0 sprite for 3, then a veteran upgrade and things like that.
Okay.
So that's actually a pretty decent mix, but the placement is really finicky. Anyway, so looking at your role compared to your teammates, like he's got a basically just your role but better, and he's got basically your role but better. Because your ads are like Troll Champion's fine, Hellraiser's fine, but I would probably just be thinking I'm gonna YOLO if I've got your role. But let's see. Okay. So if you do the upgraded privateer start, it basically automatically means that you're going holder, which is like fine because both of these guys have said they want a YOLO. But I don't actually think it makes sense for either of them to YOLO as much as it makes sense for them to like play greedy and then you to YOLO. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because both of them are just like your role except better on 10. Example like zombie, yeah, if you YOLO a zombie, you'll have like a little more value in butchers, but you're just probably just going to be weaker than if you just played privateer, because privateer is such a donkey unit. And then personally, I quite like Lord Privateer mix. You can play it like anti-7, which would be like 1 Lord and maybe 4 Privateers or something, which is a build focused on holding like 4, 5, 6, 7. Or you can play it with like Hades and maybe 2 Privateers, and then second Hades for 10, and that way it's more focused on holding 10, less focused on 7. So it's kind of flexible in that regard, which is nice.
I like the transition of just going Lubber to Privateer 3. I think that's really strong.
Yeah, it feels really good because it's so safe every level.
Yeah.
Especially with Spectre, like if you're worried at all about a Force End, it's just like 1 Spectre and it's just already good.
It's really good.
Anyway, so you start with the Privateer, because both your teammates have said they were going to YOLO, this is fine. I would never start big Privateer unless I was going to go overbuild though. But yeah, that's fine. Since it makes sense for you to overbuild now.
Yeah, I'm always trying to adapt to my team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this spot, I think it's actually like not correct for you to overbuild, but because of what your team wants you to do, it is correct.
Yeah.
So it's a bit weird, in that sense, but yeah, sure, whatever. It makes sense. So why not? Anyway.
I had some high hopes on my free reroll here.
Do you free reroll now?
No. I think around level 7.
Yeah, that's fine. It's like you could reroll now. I probably wouldn't though. I actually don't mind Phantom either. I know it sounds weird, but you can mix a Hellraiser, especially with your teammates' rolls. It's kind of like everyone else can build to 10. This guy probably can't. He might try, but it won't work. Yeah. Okay. Sitting on like 49 gold is kind of awkward, but you can also just full build like every level, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. Because
like,
I pushed...
Honestly,
I pushed the Wisp, and then I found out that I end up on 134. And they haven't sent yet. So I was kind of expecting a send soon. And then I cancelled the Wisp and built a Privateer instead.
No, definitely good to Privateer here.
Yeah.
Like, if you're starting like this, then you actually want to be basically safe every level. And it's kind of funny, but holding 49 gold here is actually really reasonable. Because if you start getting scared of a 5 cent, which is actually not unreasonable considering like kill speed, zombie, and then like semi-slows, couple of slows, they probably recognize the clock. Privateer looks like Yig. I wouldn't expect a 5 cent per se, but because you know that, like, look, he's probably going to build for 10. He's probably going to build for 10.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I don't know what these guys are going to do if they're not building for 10, right?
Yeah, they do.
It's actually totally reasonable for you to just get a Hellraiser. How much gold do you need for a Hellraiser? You need like 6 gold or something. That's probably reasonable for you to just get 6 gold somehow. Like maybe this even leaks. But yeah, you can do a Hellraiser like 2 spots behind on 5 with Privateer, and it's a really, really strong mix for 5-7. And then falls off a fucking cliff on 10, but that's fine in this spot at least. But yeah, good decision to get the 3rd Privateer, and holding gold is fine because you can actually flex it into your build in a meaningful way. And they send here, you get 1 Dark Troll.
Yeah.
The send kind of sucked a bit.
Yes.
And also it's split weirdly. Like he got Blood Orc Spirit, you got Blood Orc Hermit, and then you guys got Dark Trolls only. But hey, that's honestly pretty good.
Yeah.
At least now it's clear like which lanes are actually going to try and carry.
Like my whole lane is mid.
Lanes that have good results here. Anyway. Yep, so you're really happy. You get lucky with the privateer in front, but that's just dopamine. Oop, sorry. So looking at what you see Zeus, see Aqua, and then like I can't even tell what the last lane is except for one Dark Mage. So it's like Aqua and then something with the Zeus. Something with the Zeus is like probably 2-0 for 3, because that's normally what you see. There's a Grizzly apparently. Okay. Anyway, you eat a bit. So there's like a lot of push. I would probably still want to be building up for
7, yeah.
5.
Yeah, I'm canceling
Or
some.
even just for 5, because you leak at the moment. If you'd add nothing, but let's see. So I would have said this just leaks, especially since you didn't get any buffs on level 4. So it's like, it's fine for you to not defend or resend, although I think you maybe should have considered it a bit more.
Yeah.
But this is like starting to leak to no send, so I'd say it's probably not ideal.
Okay.
We'll see if you get lucky here or not. Yeah, this privateer survives. If that dies, you probably like. But hey, it worked, so that is good.
We had immolation. Yeah, that's why I pushed that much.
Yeah, you full push during 4 though. So I think during 4, you need to think about the resend on 5, because they see
I thought about
privateer
it.
mid and then like no AoE, so they can be pretty confident that like Fermit probably just works.
Yep.
Because there was no IG mid or anything like that. There was no IG mid on 4, which means there probably isn't an IG full stop, right? Because I think the shares kill speed with an IG. If there was a Sea Giant, it probably misses Hydra. Things like this. So a resend on 5 would have been very problematic. Well, I'm not saying you still had to go for the Hellraiser to cover that. Probably didn't want to be like hard risking. Probably at least wanted to like clear your lane. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah, or you go the undead privateer
Yeah,
for 5. Maybe.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
The undead is for when you're going like 2 privateers, 1 undead, and actually yellowing it. Since you're like already more built, more overbuilt than that would have, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, so this 2 privateer undead, do you go...
That's like the YOLO option.
How do you play it? Do you go... how do you play it?
So you can just do the like normal privateer start, like privateer 2, privateer 3, then like 470 or whatever with the landlubber there on 4, and then upgrade it to undead for 5. Or you can do 305 lubbers with 4 and then 5, and then undead privateer 2, privateer 3, like add something on 4, privateer 5. That's the other way to play it.
Okay. Can you repeat the first option a bit more slowly? That was too fast.
So it's like the normal privateer start where you end up with 2 privateers on 3. Like however you end up with that is fine.
Yeah.
Whether you start 2-0, 3-0, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And then you go probably 470 value, but maybe you go 510 or like 470 with tier 1, whatever. But you just make sure there's 1 landlubber in this spot. And then you upgrade that to an undead for 5.
Undead for
and then
5.
You're done until 8.
And I think I would start 3-0 and 4 lubbers, and then I would
if you're planning to
2.
do the YOLO option, generally you'll start with the 3-0, but sometimes your team might need a bit of cover level 3.
Yeah, then I can start 5 lubbers 2-0. It's also okay.
Yeah, you might need cover 1 or 3 where maybe you have to stay 2-0.
And then you go privateer 2, privateer 3, and undead privateer for 5.
Here if you need to, depending how much you've pushed early, and then just upgrade it for 5 into the undead.
How much value do you need then for 4?
470 is like somewhat safe.
470, okay.
Yeah, so that's 2 privateers and 3
lubbers.
Is it 3 lubbers? I think so.
I have to count. That's 350 plus 120.
Yeah, it's right.
All right.
So yeah, 3 landlubbers. I would say if you've got especially a ranged tier 1 like Acolyte, Spectre, Scientist or something, I'd
Mm.
probably just build it
Mm.
unless I was happy to leak for whatever reason.
Okay, okay.
Anyway, upgrade here, good. Personally, wouldn't build the landlubber here because seems somewhat unlikely that you can afford 2 privateers.
Yes,
You'd
exactly.
rather have like a privateer and a Tusker Spearman, for example,
Yeah.
or like free reroll.
Yes.
So if you could afford double privateer, then like no worries, build a landlubber may as well. But because you most likely can't, unless you somehow get a lot of feed. I mean, a lot of feed is coming from here, I guess. And but yeah, if you can afford it, then do it. But because you probably can't, don't build the landlubber. Just give yourself better
Yeah.
options. Because obviously you don't really want to end on any landlubbers level 7 with
Yeah.
your with an overbuild setup.
I
And
sold
like
it and then I can check if I can afford it for 7, and if not, then yeah.
you can do something else. You can either
Yep.
Tusker Spearman on 1 privateer, or you can just drop like a landlubber and a Tusker and reroll or something.
Yep.
You got heaps of options. You can basically do whatever you want. Or you can even just build a landlubber. But anyway, you know they saw privateer on 4, and they saw overbuilt privateer specifically, so there's basically no chance they send 6. In the end, you get the gold, so happy days.
Yes.
But that's not guaranteed. So I believe pink leaked as well. But anyway, you guys have IMO, 6 privateers, nothing wrong with that. 726 privateers is pretty fed.
Look at the FURB.
A little bit unlucky on the focus, but it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't
The
matter.
IMO, it's like pretty safe to push. If you didn't get IMO, you could have stopped a little earlier and added a bit more and probably able to hold.
They die
Anyway,
again.
you lose only 1 heal in the end, which is really good. And they are dying. Cool. So that game was good. I think you were like a little keen on the full push on 4, given what they saw, but
Yep.
I mean it worked out. It's like potentially instantly game losing, but it doesn't really matter.
I thought
Watch
about
this
it
replay.
and I said like pray for no recent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Emma would have just been like cherry on the cake in that sense, right?
Yeah, I had
Like
pink.
even if you had even if you got Stomp or something, Furb Spirit or Firmit on
Yeah,
each lane would have been quite painful.
would have been quite painful. Yeah. But these recents are not that common in FBG. It's
Okay.
really rarely that a team sends, for example, 2 resends 3, or sends on 3 resends 4, 5. That's really rare.
Yeah, right.
The most common thing
Interesting.
that we have is sending 6, resending 7. That's the only thing.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it ended up working, so sure. And you know, I don't know how much you thought about it at the time. It's just definitely something you needed to think about.
Yeah, I thought
And if you
about it.
thought about it and decided to full push anyway, then fair enough. Anyway, this is like drop and reroll.
Yeah.
On to the next one, I suppose. Unless you got any questions or whatever, just shoot them in.
No, I'm fine. I just got a bit indoctrinated to play greedy, and I think I try it now. Like everyone told me, play greedy and do an extra wisp if you can afford it. I mean, you're right that on certain levels I should have covered better. That was exactly correct. So I need to think now. I think in general when it's okay to play greedy and when not, because I tend to play always super greedy, or more
Yeah, I
greedy
mean,
than
it's just a balance, right?
that I played in the past.
Like, normally I would agree you hold for, like, you're planning an overbuild setup, then you hold a send 4, get some feed, it's totally fine to just push a bunch, right? But specifically in that spot, it's like, okay, so I see no AoE on the leaks. Okay. So that means like one shotty, you know, generally lower DPS melee units normally, right?
Yeah.
Which tend to be pretty bad 5 with the exception of like IG and TS, but TS and IG would probably both be mid on 4 versus the relatively low sends.
Yeah.
So they don't see those units. They just see a privateer mid. And I'd be thinking like, well, I reckon Fermat is like 40 King Leaks. 40 King Leaks is a goal against overbuilders as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
So it's definitely like the risk of the resend 5, I think, was way higher given the specific information that the enemy team had in that game. If that makes sense.
I think I also pushed a bit too much because I went from 3-0 to 6-2.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
quite
there
a
was
lot.
a reasonable amount of time to make that okay. And then you can like keep pushing with the immolation to 7-2, but it was a lot of push. But anyway, it went well. Yeah, onto this game. This is just like drop. I would drop Nightmare, but it doesn't matter what you drop, to be honest. You can drop anything. So ship cannon, probably Grizzly or Crab drop.
Really crappy rolls.
And then, and he could play this as like Donkey overbuild, but I would only play that if my team sort of really appreciates it. Let's see what you do.
The funny thing is that I got the Soul of Hero YOLO guide lately, but of course I didn't go for it.
I hate that unit. Okay, so he's keeping this. Footman plus Rider. Interesting. Rerolled. Okay, so this is interesting with his roll. So you know his only way to survive is to go TS. So either he overbuilds, or he suicides, or he does some like no-low thing with like 2 TS and is completely useless and he rips on 8.
He plays
so basically
full
his
midway.
only way to actually survive is overbuild with TS.
Yeah.
And then Tin probably pushes with this roll. Definitely should. Okay, so you decide to cover 1, which is fine. You basically have the carry roll, kind of. Like, I suppose Tin does as well, but you kind of have a carry roll. Which is not necessarily what you want to say about your Privateer Necro roll, but it just is what it is this game. So, makes sense to cover Warrior, even though your team is like pretty fine against Warrior, because it's most likely just clears with double one-shot. Makes sense to be safe.
I remember that game, and it was one of the better games, for sure.
Okay, so it's worth watching, or is it just it's boring Privateer overbuild?
I'm not
or is it boring Privateer overbuild but still worth watching?
Yes, that's
anyway,
describes it really good.
Yeah, it's looking fat.
I mean, you can also fast forward a bit because we just had a Privateer game.
Yeah.
But I just remember that I'm mid every level, and yeah, the game works out nicely.
Man. Anyway, I like that actually. Being careful on the Wisp. Yeah, that's good play. You had the Wisp on like 80% and then saw you couldn't quite do it in the Privateer, wanted the Privateer and just full build instead. I like that.
Yep. Thanks.
There's definitely enough time for them to send to if they wanted to. Well, I say definitely. Probably enough time for them to get 3 to 4 Blood Orcs if they wanted to send.
Yep.
Your team is like not particularly great here. I mean, they're okay, but it's still good for sure to Privateer since it's just you're just going to keep building Privateers. That's kind of how it's going to go until they send this game. Nothing wrong with that though. So you saw the Lord, now you see turret. Is that turret with engineer? Yeah, turret with engineer, and then
LOD, Nightmare Ice Troll.
Alright, so those rolls look like, basically, they look like send. They don't look like attack after fog ever. So I'd expect to send at some point, which basically means you get to keep building with as little push as you feel like.
Oh, I think I go 3-0 here.
Yeah.
A bit late.
Like,
mix in another
it doesn't
Privateer.
really matter. It's just however much you push, it just has to make sense on some increment, right?
Yeah, I just have to reach a privateer every
Yeah.
level, kinda.
Your job is to cover 4, cover 5 if possible, but it's like not super possible for you.
Yeah, I told my team already on
Unfortunately.
level 2 or 3 that they
Yeah.
one of them could cover 5 if you want.
Yeah. You have the rider build. I hate this box rider, by the way. I would definitely build them more in a line early on.
Okay.
You need the damage share. Like this, they're one-shotting on 5 with their spell, right? So you want them to hit different creeps.
Not
So
the same.
then, because they don't have that much HP, and they're not a AoE, you want to build them more for damage share. Once you start getting like 8 of them, or 6 or 7 or whatever, then you can
Then it
start
doesn't
going
matter,
double
yeah.
lines, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But early on, I really hate the rider boxes, and I see lots of people doing them. I think it doesn't make any sense. It's just, I can't understand why this is better on any level than just 3 riders like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And actually getting some damage here.
No. I get it.
Anyway.
But I remember Orange, he plays full Meatwagon and he's doing good, to be honest. He's I remember that game that he did it well somehow.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Of course, he leaks
Sometimes
5.
if the game is fat enough, you can get away with big leaks 5-6 and still recover because Wagon's pretty good on 8. But I mean, I would always just assume the game goes like relatively standard. Either there's kinging or there's some early sends that don't do like a whole lot, like there's not big king leaks or whatever. Then both teams like send a bit on 7 and do a bit of king, blah blah blah. That's like a relatively standard sort of game, right? And in that sort of game, this role doesn't survive without overbuilding and time stealing. That's a funny build.
Yeah, but it worked out. He's 7-1, that's okay. 6-1 on 4, also decent.
Yeah, it's a decent push. Okay, so you go undead here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's reasonable on 5. I personally don't really like it, but it's reasonable on 5. I just hate slotting in an undead whenever I'm trying to overbuild.
I get double BO Hermit.
Yeah, there are 8 Blood Orcs and 1 Hermit. Yeah. A big send, which is a bit unlucky. I mean, it's fairly unlucky. You didn't get a Furb though, which is the reason it's going well.
Yeah.
Also, you told me you were mid every level, which appears to not be the case.
Almost every level then.
So good. Anyway, you have 3 lanes that are full clear and then only orange lakes. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fine
that
to
was
just play
super
like
good.
this. I would have just gone for privateers, honestly, and not even bothered with the undead, even though I think it's like they probably send 5 based on the scout.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we send warriors and they leak every level, so it was super obvious they come 5.
Yeah. I just still personally like looking at pink and yellow overbuilding. I've just been like, all right, fuck the undead. I'm just going for privateers. If I get a Furb here, I rip anyway.
But
if I get no Furb, it's like actually about the same. I mean, yeah, it's about the same.
But I think my team played it kind of good. I mean, they didn't overpush that much. They all cleared to a really big send.
No, they didn't overpush at all.
And now we can like full push and have a holder and shockwave for 7. I think that's kind of
for
okay.
Sure. It's like the way they played it is kind of unideal in that sense, right? When you get that scout on 2, it's like, okay, well, they can't really king, so the only things they can do are clog, in which case we probably just kill them 7 at this point. And it doesn't really make sense to clog after you feed your Lord.
Yeah.
Or they try some straight send. So you can pretty comfortably just all overbuild. I mean, clog in the end would have been a good call from them, but the other thing is you've just sent warrior and they don't know your roles. So what do teams that send warrior usually want? They usually want time. What do you usually not want to, or when do you usually not want to clog? When the other team likes time.
Yeah. But
So it can work to call Clog after the other team sends warriors, but it's pretty uncommon, and it's even less common that it actually works, if that makes sense. So it would have worked this game, but it's really, really quite rare. At least without a scout. When there's a scout, everything gets different. But yeah, this game is just makes sense to expect some straight send, so everyone that can clears chooses to clear. I actually want to watch how the 630 me wagon does here.
I think
I
remember
that well.
it being like good. Okay, it's not that good. He leaks 10 creeps. Yeah, that's a wisp.
Yeah, a bit more than 10. Anyway, well, I'd have that. But yeah, he'll be able to survive because the game's fat. So that's nice for him, I guess. Okay, 169 gold. So yeah, just Necro, totally fine. You're on 50, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could like choose to not upgrade this Landlubber and do a Necrolite instead, which is pretty reasonable.
Yep.
But doesn't really matter. This is like a bit better for 7. Probably the early Necrolite is a little bit better for 10. So you can choose whichever way you want. I don't think it's a big difference. It's just one of those things, like some units are not very good and I always try and avoid like ending on them. What I mean by ending is like having them as part of your build on like a key sort of level, if that makes sense. So let's consider level 7 as a key level. I would generally try to not have something like an unupped Necromancer on 7, just because it's not very good.
Yeah.
As a unit, like it's okay in your build because you got frontline for it, and it's like some damage. But I'm just so I would try and end on like either a Privateer or a Necrolite instead, if that makes sense. I mean, it's totally fine because you pushed already, right? And then you're just building whatever money you get.
Yeah, exactly.
That's totally fine because this game went a bit wonky after the send on 5 basically failed for them, and you have Shockwave, which is like Shockwave and Rider. It's really hard for them to actually send into that. And Privateer as well, I suppose. So you kind of get to do whatever. But in a more, let's say a more stable game, it maybe is the right wording, where you get to plan ahead and the plan doesn't change quite so much because just less is happening, then I would never plan to actually have a Necromancer on whichever level I'm trying to build for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
Like a Necromancer on 4 into Necrolite on 5, for example, would have been one option with your build as well, which would be reasonable.
Yeah, it would be ideal.
I don't think it's necessary because it'd you'd end up with I think 2-0 actually, which never feels wonderful. But it would be an option.
I think similar units to that or for that are for me like Polar, Wyvern. Yeah, because you want them up on key levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, different situation if you're trying to YOLO with them than if you're trying to overbuild, of course. But yeah. Okay. They have turn upgraded Necros. One of them will be a ghost, I assume.
Yes.
Yep. I don't think it matters which you upgrade, so that's all fine. I don't actually know if Ghost or Necrolite is better with Privateer on 9.
I don't know why, but
imagined a Ghost, but I'm not sure.
Ghost has fallen a bit out of my personal favor. I don't know why. Maybe it just feels like he underperforms, but he doesn't.
It's still quite good for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really like this as well. 2 Harpies. Some people would just like, oh yeah, unupgraded Necro.
No.
Ugh. disgusting. So yeah, that's the best build you could do. I think that's really good, and I like the placement as well.
Thanks.
It's now like kind of awkward with the undead. It might drag the harpies in front, but probably shouldn't as long as there's a decent amount of mass. Harpies in front of privateers, that is. Yeah, awesome. Harpies, or at least one of them will stay behind, which is ideal. Yeah, nice. And your privateers run out of ammo and tank for the harpies. Perfect. Good build.
Thank you.
And yeah, get rewarded for guild build, which always feels nice. Why did pink split? That's funny. Anyway,
You have to check it
a
on
bit of money here.
after
Not
10.
enough to go 7-5, but that's fine. There you guys hemorrhage some heals. It's kind of painful.
Show me a split.
Okay, so drop reroll. Not a super impressive roll on you. So at this point, like, if we could take a pause, right? So you've dropped the Neo tank, rerolled, decided to sell it. So you needed enough money to drop and reroll, or to drop the Neo tank and then reroll. That's fine. As soon as I sold it, I would have started the 7-5 push and then just like looked at the values and my teammates' lanes and blah blah blah. And it's like, do I think I can win the arena without the Ascendant? So start the push, drop the Druid, and then think, how important is this Ascendant arena? I think I come to the conclusion that like, because red is high value and you want to win the arena, I would build the Ascendant, stay 7-4. But because this is not like some big carry roll and the game's relatively fat, I'd be like somewhat inclined to be going 7-5
yeah.
if I were you.
My team is also really low on push.
Yeah, for sure. So I would have like tried to sneak the 7-5, but in the end, I think getting the Ascendant is better here.
I think that's also a bit personal preference, cause I value Ascendant super high. It feels like on Ascent level, it's so good against Ascents, and
it is really nice to have an Ascendant. Yeah, it's a good unit.
I love that unit. I mix it in.
It's good. It's excellent
always.
on arena. The other nice thing about it is it's a one and done unit. You just build one Ascendant.
Yep. And sometimes I also build two. Sometimes if I have nothing better.
2 druids.
No, 2 Ascendants. If I have nothing better and the game goes 15 and I have good setup,
No, I'm saying 2 druids is better than a second Ascendant.
Okay.
Ascendant, so much of the damage. If you build another druid, we can compare.
Okay.
But basically, so much of the damage is from Ascendant, or so much of the value rather, is in that armor reduction. Like the actual stats are pretty whatever, like decent HP actually, but the actual stats are pretty whatever.
Yeah.
So I would never build a second Ascendant before 20.
Okay.
The only time I would build it is if I have like a really wide build with damage on both sides, if that makes sense. So if I've got like all my only 20 damage on this side, and then I have like crap over here, just one Ascendant to help whatever's on this side focus. If I've got sort of a wide build, damage on both sides, then I'll probably build a second Ascendant, like split them up, so they're most likely hitting different bosses.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's if you get that kind of awkward spawn with like even focus on the turtles, that'll help. That'll help deal with that. But in general, like unupgraded druid is like
it's better
damage for gold than the Ascendant is. If you take away the armor armor reduction on the Ascendant, right? Yeah, fuck off 10. If you take away the armor reduction on the Ascendant, and you pretty much can like mentally take it away because it doesn't really mean much on the actual creeps. It's only meaningful on the Ascends, and generally one Ascendant is just going to be able to do that, right?
Enough. Okay.
Or adding a second one isn't actually going to make a meaningful change until 20, where the regular wave creeps are actually worth being hit with the debuff as well, if that makes sense. So just unupgraded druid's better than Ascendant when you have one Ascendant until 20. basically the
Okay.
general theory there.
Okay.
Unupgraded druids aren't that wonderful, to be fair, but sometimes you don't have one. Sometimes you don't have great options. You could do some War Chief Druid mix here. Would be your best build for 15, but I wouldn't expect much out of it.
No, I think it's a 14 game because they have 0 heals and we have 1 heal.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
I think both teams sent 14 and I built double War Chief, but I don't remember it
Yeah, fair enough. I
that
mean,
good.
it's obviously easier to pay attention to that inside the game rather than sort of zooming through the replays. But yeah, if it's 14, then absolutely just War Chiefs. And the one Ascendant, obviously still great. Sniping Behemoths.
I'm not sure
Just generally
if
very
it
good
is
against all
that
Ascends.
game or another game. Oh, it's that game then.
Yeah. Looks like it could be 14 based on the timer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go 3 upgraded spiders. I would personally just stick to War Chiefs if I'm building for 14.
Yeah.
I don't love up spiders. There's no the debuff isn't that impactful because none of the sends on 14 do that much damage.
Mm.
Or the ones that do are going to die pretty quickly as soon as you hit them. 900 health is whatever. It's not like there's a 2500 health Firelord where the debuff is a lot more impactful, if that makes sense.
So basically you build none or maybe just one if you want the debuff, right?
Yeah, I would personally just not build any. I don't think it's that.
Okay.
I don't think they're really all that good. 14, 15. I don't personally like the unit into the mid game.
My idea behind was that I felt like my front line is okay already, and I tried to mix in something that snipes the sense to be mid. But yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, but I would argue that your actual difficulty at the moment is killing the Tuskers. Like, in terms of killing the Sens, you have an Ascendant,
Yeah.
which is already like a massive deal.
Yeah.
Then you have Ghost and the Necrolite,
Yeah.
right? And then you just have the auto attacks from all your
No,
melee things.
I don't
So
have
I
a
would
big
say
front
you have a
line.
harder time actually killing Tuskers than
Yeah.
Sens at the moment, because the
Yeah.
Ascendant is so much value killing those Sens. But if you just remove the Tuskers relatively efficiently with Ascendant and whatever damage is left over, then it's just easy. So I would personally prioritize War Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted a little bit of range damage, then yeah, you could go Spider or Druid. I honestly think it doesn't matter between them in this spot. Like, both damage types are pretty crap here, 90% or 80%.
Yeah, no.
Druid has the spell, which is
Pierce and magic damage is really bad on 40.
okay. Yeah. Anyway, this makes sense for what you've got now, so that's fine. I would definitely consider War Chief a better anti-14 option than Spider, though.
Then a third War Chief instead of the 3 Spitters. Maybe I could even reach the fourth one if I skip the Druid
you could
as
reach
well.
4 War Chiefs.
Yeah, could reach.
Which I think would have been the best build, but I'm sure this is going to work with 3500 value and a generally good setup, though. It's not like the Spider is crap. I mean, it'll do its job, right? Just do some damage and it will help you get through the Sens a little bit more than War Chief. I just value War Chief getting through the Tuskers, and then Ascendant is already just so overtuned against Sens, basically. Anyway, works nicely. Basically have all your backline alive.
Yeah, I get the point. Then 4 War Chiefs would have been even better. Because I
think so.
Yeah, I have a Necro, Ascendant, and 2 Harpies already.
Yeah. And the Ghost. And you gotta remember, the War Chief has a little bit of extra synergy because you've got the Ghost.
Yeah.
Just, a reasonable
double
amount of
AoE.
AoE damage.
Yeah.
I don't know. Personally, I don't really consider Privateers as, frontline either. That makes sense. They're, kind of just paper.
I was questioning myself one thing, and I couldn't really answer it. It's Privateer gets better over time, right? So every round it survives, it gets extra damage and HP.
Yep.
And so why is it falling off in the mid game? Because normally it should get better. I mean, it's okay in mid game, but it's underperforming on some levels, I think.
Okay, sorry, that's a bit of a nuisance. I'll have to log back in. So there are a couple of reasons for that. Yeah.
Do you know them?
Yeah. Sorry. You can probably see this, so it's really awkward.
No, wait, I'm hiding. Just in
So I think I use
case
the
you can
password.
see
I don't
your
use this email, by the way, so
Yeah. It's okay.
come on, Blizzard. Come on, Blizzard. There we go. Excellent.
Nice.
If you think about damage types mid-game,
Yeah.
whoops, that's not where I want to go. So pierce into normal with heavy armor.
Yeah.
So just ask yourself the question of like, which level is that good on? So it's like, it's okay on 14.
Yeah.
It would be like okay frontline, except it spends a bunch of time doing the pistol shots, which don't do as much damage on 14.
I think on 13 it's not good either.
13 it's really squishy and then goes to normal, which is crap.
And
15
then
it just doesn't do much damage
Yeah.
and just gets mulched by the Fire Lord.
16 is also magic damage again. Yeah. Okay, I see.
16 it's squishy, 17 it does no damage, 18
Yeah.
it's squishy,
Yeah.
19 I guess it's like fine 19, but even then it's like whatever.
Yeah, that's explanation enough. It's just the armor and attack type in the mid game, right?
Like the armor and the damage damage type are just unimpressive for mid game. The pistol, which is generally helps it early in the game, it's a pretty strong early game. I think the pistol actually makes it a worse unit in the mid game.
Okay.
Because it just doesn't function as like dumb frontline, which would otherwise just be okay.
Yeah.
It's like if you got melee units or things like Hydra, then it's actually good with things like Hydra, but if you got melee units, it can be awkward privateer letting them tank. Like if you're trying to carry your lane with melee units, if that makes sense. And then like it only gets 2 damage and 20 HP each time it survives, which is not hugely meaningful. You gotta remember the unit is like balanced to some extent around the fact that it does get stronger over time, so I guess it starts maybe even slightly weak. And yeah.
I got it.
And there's just like no utility in the unit either. Like if you think about the majority of units that are considered like generally good in the mid game, most of them have some form of like utility. AoE is like honestly really king in the mid game.
Yeah.
With not that many exceptions.
Yeah. Talk, for example. And also the other
like you need a mix of single target for sure to actually kill the Sens. And obviously like building those specific levels, you have specifically good units. But I'm saying like as a generalist unit in the mid game, we're talking about the units that are good sort of like every level. Things that spring to mind are things like Hades. That's just like really efficient tankiness, like a hell of a lot of HP.
Yeah.
And has low damage increments, so it's effective in an AoE setup. Think of things like Tok, bunch of AoE damage, frontline, excellent. Slow auras, OP on every melee level. Helicopter, generally broken. Hydra, tanky AoE damage. You know, these sorts of things that tend to be good like everywhere.
And anyway, Butcher also. Butcher?
Yeah. I mean, Butcher's tanky, has like some AoE. It's kind of just, I think, an exception because I personally think the Butcher is a bit too strong as well.
It is.
So it's like, it's good on levels where I don't necessarily think it should be good.
Exactly.
Like it's cracked on 18, for example, and that's totally fine.
Yep.
It's like, I think it's too good on 14. I feel like it should be a bit easier to kill for like Tuskers and Gargoyles than it is. And then 15, it's kind of ridiculous how long it can just hang around.
It's one of the rare units that's good on 14 and 15, for example,
Yeah, that's true. There aren't very many of those.
And that's where most of the games end at the moment.
Yeah.
If not.
And I feel like that just hints at it being like a little bit too strong rather than this unit is doing something so new that it's like somehow good on both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that just means it's a little bit too strong, especially with medium armor. I mean, come on.
Yep.
Anyway, quick look at teammates' rolls.
Yes.
Zombie Rider. He can play Militia Overbuild if he wants, but it's probably reroll given there's double zombie carry lanes. So your job is to just be like a lumber lane. Don't tell me you play Harlot.
No. I remember that game. It's really interesting, and I'm not ending up being the lumber lane. That's what I can tell you. I think.
Yeah, right, okay.
But I remember this game, and sorry to say, I think it's one of my best games I've played.
Boring.
No.
Okay, so let's see what you do.
Yeah, my brain is.
This is awkward.
Yeah, my
Because you
brain
can't keep
is.
all the you
Yeah.
can't keep all the skeletons you want. But
Yeah, but I want them.
yeah, unfortunately, it is just illegal.
Man,
It's totally fine to start 2-0 though.
I can really feel myself thinking there.
Yeah. So at this point, you know, you get, let's say 120 gold, right?
Hmm?
Send one income, 120 gold. So you're on 145 gold. 90, 45, excellent. So you can get that third wisp, right?
Yep, I
Which is
can do
probably
Dark
what you wanna
Mage
do,
Wisp.
plus Dark Mage.
Yep.
The issue is if you do that, what do you do for level 3? The only option at that
Crusader.
point is Crusader.
Yep.
Right? But what you'd rather do is, I believe it's possible to just sell this one, right? You end on like 20 gold.
Then I get the zombie, right? Yeah.
I think with, is it 9 gold or 4 gold? 9 gold or 4 gold, one of the two, you should be able to end up on double zombie with Dark Mage Bone Warrior, which I think is what you'd ideally want for 3.
Yeah, that would be good. But remember that the other guys also have like better carry rolls than me, kinda.
Yeah, for sure. But that's just like part of your YOLO, right?
Yeah.
3-0 level 3, which is
Because I wanna play it like a greedy YOLO and come out big for 10
Okay.
in the mid game.
Fair enough.
Hello, Simon.
Surprised you're not pushing here.
Yeah,
What's your plan?
I don't remember.
But yeah, even though you got Butch, he's starting Slave actually. Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, even though you got Butcher, I still think you are a little bit of Lumberline. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
Wisp.
just late.
So it's just light as. Okay.
Yes.
Try not to do that, but whatever. At least you don't have some like really just nonsense plan like Crusader on 2 when you are already good on 2.
Some people told me that already, but I don't think it's a big deal. They sent spirits here. I'm older. I'm not so young anymore. So sometimes my brain is not as fast as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
I'm close to 40 now. So sometimes I'm a bit slow.
Like, I'm not gonna shred you for a slow. I'm not gonna shred you for a slow wisp or whatever.
Yeah,
it's more just like, well, the intention was correct and just the execution was a bit off because it's
Yes.
easy to fix execution with practice, right? When you just get more used to it.
Yeah.
Or you just think about it a bit more early and it's like, hey, I'm gonna be more focused this game.
Yes, it was more kind of a focus thing there.
Yeah, and it's when it's a little bit more difficult when like the thought behind it was maybe flawed in some manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's worse the other way around. Exactly.
Potentially a little more troublesome. You say you're not the lumber line.
Oh, 4-0.
Spicy.
Yeah, I sell 1 for Crusader and then I go Crusader for 4, I think.
This is super awkward. I don't actually know how much you need to hold here, but I would imagine it's like all the value though.
Yeah.
Zombie is not that great. 3. It's pretty good, but it's not that great.
It really performs here with the Dark Mage, as far as I remember.
Yeah, for sure. It likes the Dark Mage. It likes the little increment help from the protons and that. But yeah, it's not the kind of thing where you could feel safe on like 350 value. I wouldn't imagine.
No. What do you mean with increment health from the proton? Does unupped zombie already?
Zombie doesn't one-shot level 3. I think it's actually most of the time it doesn't one-shot.
Okay,
so
then now I know what you mean.
Zap, making it one-shot the creeps, or helping it one-shot the creeps, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Because even if it left creeps on 1 HP, if it had to swing twice at all of them, then that's halving its actual DPS output, right? Because instead of killing a creep every swing, it kills a creep every 2 swings. It doesn't matter that the creep might be left on 1 HP. Anyway, this is like more value than you want, but you don't have much of a choice, so it's fine. This is actually technically good placement for the Crusader, since it's a bit of a damage dealer on 5 in your setup.
And the cool thing is they send here.
Oh, there you go. Well, Crusader's quite good on 4.
Yep. Snipe the Dark Troll.
You snipe the Troll, kind of. I mean, you do fine, yeah. The awkward thing about this, though, is I'm not actually sure that you get to push.
Yeah, because 5, right?
Yeah.
I have
Crusader's bad on 5, Zombie's not that great, and you don't really have anything good ad-wise. You also don't get any King Gold. Well, you get a little bit of King Gold, but not much.
Yeah, no.
Do get some income. We'll see what you do for 5. It's like difficult. It feels like you have to push that Wisp, just so you're not.
I don't want to be 4-1, 4-5, right?
No. Okay, you actually got a reasonable amount of gold. Oh, okay, you got good sends and income, so that'll help. I would have personally gone Priest here.
Yep.
I would have placed it there.
Yep, can do it.
Rather than second Dark Mage. Like, the Dark Mage doesn't really buff anything.
Yep, true.
If that makes sense. Like,
yep.
1 Dark Mage will pretty quickly buff 2 units. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, Priest.
So I'd say
Priest is good.
Yeah, Priest is like a generally okay unit. It's also not bad on 6 because the damage output of 6 is somewhat low. So it gets a bit more time to heal.
True.
It's just like, honestly, it's, I hate to say it, but it's probably slightly underrated. Like, I actually think the unit's not complete trash. But the thing is, like, 1 Dark Mage, it pretty quickly buffs 2 units, right? So if you've got 2 units you want to buff, I'd say you're generally fairly happy with 1 Dark Mage. When you got 3 to 4, that's when you start thinking about second Dark Mage, right?
Yep, true.
But yeah. So yeah, in this spot you've got 2 Dark Mages. They're going to instantly buff these units, and then they're going to look and they're going to buff each other. And 27 to 31 damage is like pretty whatever for a buff.
I think I'm leaking, but the issue is we got Immo again, and I thought like leaking, that was my thinking behind it.
But leaking was fine.
Leaking was fine.
I mean, it's not hugely punishing, but you also send here, so it's not like you need to leak for time. You're expecting them to give you time. You actually get really lucky on the focus as well. If this zombie fully dies, you leak probably
more
10 creeps instead of 4.
Yeah.
That was honestly really lucky. Zombie and the Crusader managed to just kill all the creeps attacking the zombies, and then the Dark Mages tank the rest. Anyway. Scroll through this, you're 4 pushing, which is good, because you'll just add, you got Crab, which is nice, that can help you out on 6, or you can decide to leak 6, which is actually a reasonable decision. So either way, it's fine for you to just deliberately leak 6, it's fine for you to add a Crab if you want to come back in the game.
Yeah.
I don't like this placement though.
You wanted to the Crusader, left side of the Crusader?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Crab, it's got 180 range, So even if you build it next to Crusader, it's still going to be not really like full tanking. It's only going to tank the creeps to start walking around the back. Here, it's just going to waste time walking forwards. It may not end up where you want it.
So what
So I don't
about
really.
what about Crusader and Zombie? Do they also have 180 range or melee?
No, they're less.
They have
180
less.
range is like the same range as Ig and Butcher.
That's a bit weird, right? That some melee
Well,
units.
Butcher says melee, but maybe it's just so fat. TOT has 180 range.
Okay.
Um,
What's the
yeah.
issue there? Can you explain that? Why do some melee units have melee range and some melee units have 180 range? What are the benefits and the?
I mean, 180 range is always going to be better because ranged is strictly better than, or range is strictly better than melee, right? And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
If you pretend that you had a zombie with 500 range and a zombie with melee range and the exact same stats, 500 range is always better, right?
Yeah.
Because it gets a couple of attacks while the enemy creeps are walking and it doesn't have to move around as much and waste time attacking.
Yeah.
So range is always better.
Yeah.
So that includes 180 range, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has that slight little circle. Like, it's really small.
Yeah.
Like, this crab couldn't hit this dark mage, right? For example, but it could maybe hit like this proton.
Yep.
Zombie wouldn't be able to hit something that's here, but maybe the crab would. That sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's a really small circle, but it just means they're generally a little more efficient on range levels, and that's basically all it is. Like, that's why Greyman runs around like a donkey.
Yeah,
and things like Ig and Blaster behave a bit better because Greyman has that melee range, so it's not as good as finding creeps. And privateers run around like idiots on 8, right? But things like Blaster, Ig, because they have that 180 range, they're able to hit more creeps. Or because they got that little bit of range, they'll be able to find the creeps more efficiently. They won't need to move as much. Chances are whenever they're hitting a creep, there's probably another creep in range. Then they move slightly and hit that creep, move slightly, hit the next one, blah, blah, blah. And it ends up being a lot more sensible.
That's quite interesting.
In terms of what the range actually does, I mean, you can consider it melee until you're mixing it with other melee units, if that makes sense, that are true melee. So because it has 180 range, you know it's not going to walk in front of your other melee units, right? And your other melee units are going to walk in front of it. That's why people don't like mixing many melee units with Ig, for example, because Ig is supposed to tank and then melee units walk in front of Ig. And the same as Tok, right? Tok's got that 180 range in the big model. You mix it with Time Stealer is always going to walk in front.
That's melee. I remember mixing Tox with Butcher. That went super wrong.
Yeah, Mass Ig with Butcher. It's generally the way.
Yeah, I tried. The next time I tried Tree of Life with Mass Butchers. But sadly the game ended.
That's like meme territory, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wanted to try it, but sadly the game ended before I could do it. So I have to try it again now.
But anyway. So 180 range is essentially meaningless and you can consider it melee whenever you're mixing it with like other 180 range units or just like actual ranged units. When you're mixing it with melee, then with melee units, that's when you need to consider it a little bit.
Okay.
So if you consider it, it's really good because you can place it either to tank initially, like you could place it in front of tanks initially and it may not die. Or you place it a bit further behind and then it'll start to tank the creeps on the flank. Like this way, because it's got that 180, it just sort of sits in the pocket. It doesn't really do anything. That makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
like, don't get me wrong, you're able to hold happy days, nice damage share.
Yeah,
Once again, like a little bit lucky, nothing gets fully focused down. But anyway, it worked.
My intention was I was scared if I hold or not. So and it has siege attack and fortified armor, so I placed it in the back so that it gets no aggro and maybe can do more damage.
Okay.
That was my.
So if you, I think that's just like a little bit of a misunderstanding of the unit. Like Crab is shit, right?
Yeah.
It's not a damage dealer on any level except for level 1, where it one shots, right?
It's just a gold sink, right? Just the gold
I would
sink.
always consider it more of a frontliner. And because it's got that 180 range, right, when you're mixing it with other melee units, you can use it as that like semi-DPS. You put it here. You know it's not going to get focused down all that quickly because these two units will
Walk
go in front of it.
Yeah.
And then the creeps that start moving around, it'll start fighting them with the Dark Mages, which
Yeah.
is probably where I would want it personally. But yeah, just because it's got siege damage doesn't actually mean it's like much of a damage dealer, even on 6.
Okay.
It's worth noting that upgraded Crab as well also just misses out on the one shot for level 6 through no furb. So if you start mixing that, definitely need to consider that upgrade isn't actually very good level 6 unless you've got either AoE or damage buff.
What I learned about crab is that you can start 2 crabs level 1 and that holds level 1, I think. But
yeah, it does.
From there on, it gets really hard.
So crab is pretty good level 1 because it one-shots, and it's god-awful level 2 because it 2-shots.
Yes.
Crap attack speed and HP.
Yes.
So it's difficult. I mean, sometimes you see 2 crabs level 1 into like when PD was really quite strong.
PD2.
Like a number of versions ago, you'd see like AOD2. Or you can see Guardian of Death on 2 as well. That's the other one you'll see occasionally.
That's also really good on the early levels. It's just bad on 5.
It is quite bad on 5. I remember Moa did it ages ago. I think the video is called like Moa's Meth Dragon or something. And it was like upgraded dragon with Dark Mage.
Death Dragon,
exactly.
Yeah. Insane.
It's like the only role where you could ever consider playing it. And he did, because, he's a legend.
Why not?
And he likes playing the fun things like that.
I think I did once 2 bottom feeders for 1 and a Dark Mage for 2, and that barely holds.
Barely holds? I'm surprised it held, to be honest.
Yep. So they come with Kobold here. Because we have 2 zombie lanes.
Yeah. I wonder if it actually makes sense to not upgrade the Butcher there and build a zombie instead. Because you expect kobolds. And you don't feed the kobold. I don't know if that actually makes sense or not.
It can, because soaked up kobolds, they are really a problem for me. And also when I KC, they are hard to click. Even if they are bigger.
Yeah, okay. I'll take your word for it. I'll try and not touch the king myself. At least when they get a lot of damage, they get fatter.
Yeah, they are melee, or 180 values. 180 range, sorry. So, but they hide really good behind the level 7 creeps on 7, and they are kind of hard to click. And if you lose track of them, they just disappear in the mass.
Yeah. Anyway, so at this point, you got a little bit wrecked on a few different levels. So I would say you're probably not looking like too much of a 10 holder. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree, but if I was on your lane, I'd be thinking like, okay, I probably want to prioritize push. Is that where your head's at or no?
Yes, that's also my way to go. I go 7-5 or 7-4 now, I think.
Yeah, because that's probably what's happening. I would put this zombie here. So the reason for that is like Butcher says it's melee, but either it actually has 180 range or it's just the model is fat. So it ends up, it looks like it has 180 range. We'll say that. So what'll happen is this zombie, I think this zombie might even move faster, but I'm not sure about it. What'll happen on 8 and 9 is this zombie will end up like well in front of it and dying really early. Which is not really a problem on 8 because it's probably not a major on 8 because you're fairly good there.
Yeah, you want the Butcher in front, right?
It'll start to be a problem on 9.
Yeah.
Where I would want the DPS of the zombie alive earlier. In the end, get a bit lucky and the zombie goes over this side with not as many creeps. So that's quite nice.
Yeah, but I
would be fairly happy to have the Butcher full tanking and then using the zombie as like backup DPS.
Yeah.
As I said again, on 8, not such a big deal because the Butcher is strong.
Yeah.
But it's on 9 where it becomes an issue. And the thing is, if you plan to stay 7-3 or whatever for 10, it doesn't matter because you build too much value for that to be a thing on 9. But if you plan to push, which obviously you do, then it suddenly like, oh, okay, I'm 1,000 value for 9, and I have a butcher which is like okay on 9, but it's not that great.
Yeah.
Other trivia: butcher almost one shots 9. So if you really want to mix some kind of ranged unit that will finish off the creeps that hits, Dark Mage honestly will do that. And yeah, the Dark Mage, like, it's not actually a good unit here, but you don't have anything better, so it's totally fine. And it just saves you from upgrading it later. But yeah, Dark Mage will do that, so already like job done tick there. Have a look at what probably happens is I would expect this zombie to You see
Suicide.
it, right? I guess the butcher kind of sits next to it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I know what you mean, and
Let's
it's
see.
maybe just lucky, but normally you're right. The zombie should walk in front and die pretty quick. And you want the
Yeah.
butcher to tank and the crusader
It's
and
one
the
of those
zombie
things.
to
It's
come
like
in later.
it's not necessarily that you want the butcher to tank. It's just that you want the damage from the zombie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you can keep that alive a bit longer, it's good for you. You're actually getting quite lucky with the one shots here. Guess it's got a low chance to one shot. I thought I was actually 0 chance to one shot. It looks like a low chance. There you go. Got the hole. Nice job. Yeah, that's just like something to think about, right? Because if you go for like the dead standard play with the zombie, which is probably building more for 10 in most situations, right? Then that placement is totally fine. But if you start thinking about, actually, I want to push more, then firstly, you want something to finish off the creeps that the butcher leaves on like 10 HP so it doesn't have to swing at them twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you probably want the actual little zombie to stay alive longer, right? Because in
Yep.
the end, it's going to die. When you've got like 1,000 value or whatever you had with this setup on 10, like that zombie's going to die. It's
Yep.
just a matter of how quickly. So you try and make it a little less quick. When you're yodeling more like that. So it's kind of interesting that the placement changes based on what you're trying to accomplish with the same units, which I think is quite cool.
That's yeah, that's interesting for sure.
But either way, you managed to hold, so job it done, tick. You get a snipe here, which is awesome as well. Yeah, you're in a pretty good spot now. This snipe is like a lot of gold. You managed to hold the 8 and 9, even though I think honestly both levels were like slightly lucky. I feel like you were lucky on 5, 6, 8, and 9, to be honest.
Yes. Have to be lucky sometimes.
Maybe my assessment is like a little bit off.
No. For five, I was super lucky. I was not even at 600 values, so I should have.
Actually, no. For 6, you weren't lucky. Sorry, 6 wasn't lucky. You had the crab. So
yeah, five was lucky. And 8 and 9 like semi lucky, yeah, but also sometimes you can be lucky.
Oh, for sure. Nothing wrong with a bit of luck.
Yeah, lately, I told you I won like 70-80% of my games. So whatever I tried was working. Yeah, I told you already before we recorded that I'm also quite busy trying to lead my team to victory as a shot caller and a king controller. So sometimes I'm a bit focused on something else then, but yeah, of course, that's no excuse. That's no excuse, of course.
I mean, whether you consider an excuse or not, you will make more mistakes if you're focusing on your teammates' builds more.
Yeah, but
it's just how it is.
I think anyway. I end up on a pretty decent income.
This game.
Yeah, decent income.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
If you compare to the others, and I have a quite high value as well, and I have a nice setup with the 3 dark mages that I kept from level 1 and can just build up mass.
You ended up with a good game for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a bit difficult if they didn't leak a decent amount 5, but hey, they did, so happy days.
Yep.
But I mean, it's not really, doesn't really mean anything me saying that either. Looking at your teammates' roles really quickly, do you actually want a 15 game? Because it looks like no one's leaking. You have 3 butcher lanes.
I can't remember what our call is.
You don't need a 15 game. You have good 16 as well.
Yeah, but we go for teal elf is leaking, and we go 15, I think, and we just win because of the heal advantage.
Basically, just thinking like, instead of the second zombie, do you ever start thinking about 7-6 and leaking? But probably not. Probably not. You're in a good spot this game.
Yeah, we decided teal to leak.
Yeah.
Or he offered it by himself, I think.
It's fucking hard to leak with Butcher anyway. Because it's so good on 11 and 12. Like, even if you sold that zombie and you end on 1600 value, I feel like you're bloody close to holding 12. Maybe just straight up hold 12.
Yeah, anyway. Maybe.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't really need to do a lot except build butchers at this point, I don't think. You'd probably reroll at some point if you want.
Yep.
Just fast forward through a little bit because I don't imagine too much happens.
No.
Should probably just save gold on 12. Actually leak here, which is convenient. What was that? I don't know. I don't think you needed to upgrade that butcher, but
yeah, I placed I placed unupped ones, so I upped them for sure at some point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, you keep, I think you kept like all of them, but that's totally fine.
Yeah, cause I have ghost, and game goes 15.
Yeah, you've got 4 zombies at the moment though, I think, which is a lot.
Yep.
So look through that real quick. Just for me, thinking you're probably, oh no, you sub 1. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good. Thinking you want the ghost, but you have the ghost, and then you actually, harpies are quite a good unit. Like harpy and solar villain, they're quite good in this spot. So
I could have sold like one more zombie. Yeah.
No, this is a good amount. The 6 is fine. The other option you had was maybe place 1 less zombie and place like 2 priests, but whatever. But yeah, 6 butchers is fine. I think 5 butchers would have been okay as well, but probably 6 is good. But yeah, I thought you had 7 for a second, and 7 would have been too many because then you would basically miss all your backline.
Yeah.
And the backline is quite good.
Or you even miss upping one of them.
Yeah. Well, basically you have to choose between like pretty good backline units, like Ghost, Harpy, Sov, and then you lack damage, or you have unupgraded zombies, which is, I guess, again, like that thing we talked about earlier where you want your build to end, or you want to know what your end build looks like.
I think I'm not even building
in the end.
Full
At least
value.
in the mid-game, you probably don't want any unupgraded zombies because they don't do anything. Yeah, this is good. Only thing I would do is, because the Sov behaves pretty nicely, it's got 400 range, doesn't really walk forwards that much. I would build it and just buff a couple of butchers with it.
Okay.
Harpies, you can't really do that because they fly forwards and there is serious risk of them getting sniped if you build them right behind the butchers, but the Sov is sensible, so I would just put it there.
I have a question.
It's fine, but I would just put it there.
I have a question. You mean buff up the butchers? So the butchers, do they have lifesteal by themselves as regular skill?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have. Okay, so they just and if they soak up HP, they just get
they just suck the HP.
They get bigger, right?
HP.
Okay, but the lifesteal, they have it even if they don't soak up something. Okay.
Even if it's the only unit on your lane. Okay. And Butcher solo leaks level 2, by the way. So don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit overkill. See.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also looking at your lane, right? In terms of backline, like you've got a little bit, but you don't actually have much backline when you're looking at it, right? It's 3 harpies, a Sov, a ghost, and a priest, and 3 dark mages. Like that's your backline. That's not going to be killing a Firelord and a Kraken, right?
Yep.
So because of that, you're like, okay, I don't really need to go mid because I've got like red and purple and blah blah blah.
Yep.
But let's say I was going to go mid because maybe the send split is weird, which it appears to be. You don't have a behemoth. How am I going to go mid? I need butchers alive, basically. Like, my butchers are going to have to kill the sends,
Yes.
right? Which means that, okay, you're probably slightly more inclined than usual to give them more HP because you actually need them alive at the end. They're like essentially your carry units, right?
Yeah, they are kind of here.
It's not, for example, like on 17 where maybe they're dumb tanks and you don't really care. Like, they just sit as frontline for a little bit and then just whatever you have in the backline does the backline damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need these guys alive as long as
Yes.
possible.
And as many as I can, right, as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're kind of my damage.
Yeah. So I would buff them with the Solve or give them the HP from the Solar Villain because you don't need HP from the Solar Villain. But yeah, as I said, you can't do it with the Harpies, unfortunately, even though you'd probably like to, because Harpy just doesn't behave very nicely at short range and runs a lot. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, this is basically how you have a shot at going mid, right? Whether you're actually doing it is like somewhat RNG based on like Firelord explosions and that. Yeah, managed to go mid. Nice. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe priest.
Yes.
Priest for second. Nice job.
Just heals himself on the way.
Yeah, this priest is a min-maxer.
Would you up priest or mass them? I think mass, right?
With butcher, I'd definitely up them.
Okay.
I would generally upgrade them. It's just like, it's also just a bit worse spamming shitty units with Firelord.
Yeah, true.
Or spamming smaller units even as part of the backline.
True.
And the other thing is, after the priest changes, where they'll only use the heal when it gets full value, so they won't use the 150 HP heal on a unit that's lost 40 health, right?
Yep.
That's always a good thing. Also with butchers specifically, because a bunch of them will lose HP.
It heals them instant
at the start of the fight. When you have a lot of them like that, when they do the suck, a bunch of them will be lower on HP. So you get the big priest and they'll just immediately heal it back up, and it's a good bit of dopamine.
That's good.
Like if you had 170 gold left over, then absolutely I would smash down a high priest.
Yeah, you can do. I know that mechanics that it got changed and you can also do the same with the medicine man behind the butchers. That's also quite decent.
Yeah, for sure. Although I would say that medicine man is a worse unit than priest. I think the heal is worse, and I think the stats are. I think the stats are worse.
From the medicine man?
Yeah.
But it looks cooler. With a healing wave, yeah, it has a healing wave. It goes through all the units. The animation is better.
Alright. I prefer priest. You're not gonna convince me otherwise.
So
priest is goated.
Do you wanna stop now? Or you wanna do one more replay? It's up to you.
Up to you. Do you have a do you recognize one that might be particularly good?
No, I just recognize one being particularly bad. I got trapped with one roll. No. I don't do that. I can explain it pretty simple. I got a Time Stealer Dark Mage, and I tried to YOLO it, and then they sent 2.
Alright.
And I had Time Stealer Dark Mage for 2. I leak half the wave, and I had to build Time Stealers. And then there was simply no push, no hold.
Yeah,
and
Time Stealer is a little bit.
Don't do that.
Time Stealer is a little bit unforgiving.
Yep.
When 2 sends were common, we used to start Time Stealer with 1-0 and stay 1-0 for 2. Just because it was so punishing if you ripped on 2.
Okay.
Ooh, okay. Well, I like this roll.
Yeah.
Well, look at the teammates real quick. Zombie Polar with Egg Alpha, it's a really good roll, and it's Rans, he's really good. EA and Alchemist, so we'll have a look at his reroll.
He doesn't reroll.
Oof, last and no ads on free.
Yeah.
Love it.
He is one of my special friends that I try to
Surely not.
Yeah, you would have
Surely
played
not.
Malf Ghoul.
Oh, my eyes.
Malf
No,
Ghoul? Landmine, yeah,
I
Malf
think
Ghoul.
Nafgul is like genuinely quite good.
Yeah.
So I would have absolutely played that.
Okay.
And then the thing is, like, if you look at the roles, like, he's carry role.
Yep.
He's gonna like try and force himself to be a carry when he shouldn't somehow. Like,
Yes.
what's gonna happen? It's ugly, but whatever.
Yeah, we need a YOLO.
So with that, basically, you get to push early and then have the option of carrying with like Hydra on free roll afterwards. So I would definitely play Mouthgul. I think it's just a really stable YOLO. It's a little bit weak on 4 to send, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you have the option of mixing in a Maverick as well if you feel like being better on 8. You can do that since the rest of your units are so good 6. You can like build a prisoner instead of a Mouth if you want to do the Maverick for 8.
Okay.
You don't have to, but you can.
Yeah,
anyway,
I know.
Whatever you've decided to reroll. I kind of disagree with it, but
yep, it's totally fine.
it's not unreasonable.
You probably
Especially
start
with
a
this.
4-0 Ghoul and then you do a Malf for 2, Malf for 3, something like that.
No, unfortunately it's well, look, it depends. With a good tier 1, I think you had Landmine, right?
Landmine, yeah.
You could do that with Landmine, but it is quite risky. So I would generally say the safe way is actually 2-0 Ghoul Mouth. That way you mid-level 1. Second Mouth on 2, mid-level 2 versus Send. 3-0, add a Mouth on 3.
Interesting.
So 3 Mouths, 1 Ghoul, holds 3-4. 1 more Mouth for 5, and that holds 6.
Then you have 4 Malfs and a Ghoul, right?
Yep. So that's 400, that's 380 plus 150.
That's less than 600 value and holds 6.
Yeah, it's like 530 value. If
insane.
you haven't leaked, if you haven't got punished by Ascend and your Ghoul is nice and fed, then you can go mid on 5 with 530.
And how do you make the placement? Like Ghoul on the wall and the Malfs just diagonal?
Yeah, Ghoul on wall and Mouse in front.
Malfs in front.
Yeah, Mouse in front.
Malfs in front and then diagonal in front of the Ghoul.
Yeah, and then just damage share a Mouse and Ghoul behind.
Okay, good.
Nice, easy.
Good.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. You can also start 3-0 if you got a good tier 1 and Ghoul with like probably a tier 1, let's say Spectre, like Ghoul Spectre, Mouth, maybe a second Spectre, and then like maybe 1 Mouth or 2 Mouths. You can either go like second Spectre on 2 and a Mouth, and then a Mouth on 3 and something else, so you can just Mouth, Ghoul, Spectre, risk a little bit on 2 and then 2 Mouths on 3. It's the other option. But I would personally do that if I've got a relatively good tier 1. I wouldn't really count Landmine since Landmine is problematic on level 4 and 5.
It's also problematic with Ghoul. I think once when I was a bit more unexperienced, I played Ghoul with 2 landmines, and that also is really bad.
It doesn't help at 1 or 2.
Yes.
It does help at 3 though.
Yeah, at 3 it's okay, but I did it on 1 and then the landmines killed so much that the Ghoul didn't got fed.
Jesus, you're breaking my heart.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway,
it's just a learning process.
So this role is like, if you get fat, you can carry, but it's kind of hard to get fat. At this point, I think you have to keep the prisoners. Yeah, I'd say you have to keep the prisoners just because it's your most stable YOLO. You don't have any ads for Sprite.
Yep.
So, but you can do a prisoner Sprite mix and probably end up fine, especially because you got the engineer, which can potentially help you 6.
Yes, I think that's what I do.
I hate prisoner. I really hate the unit. I think it's crap.
I love it.
But it's fine. 3 blasters for 7. That's like a 2017 build.
I mean, yes, it's not the best push, but it feels like a really stable early game unit to me, and I can YOLO with it pretty good, yeah.
Right. I hate prisoner, so but I'll stop dumping on it now.
No, it's okay. It's I can see the downside of it, because normally if you have really fast level 1 and 2, you end up 2-0 for level 3 with a YOLO, and that's
Anyway,
super bad.
so I actually don't like this either,
Mm.
what you've done here. So my problem with it is, firstly, Warlock is a shit unit.
Mm.
It doesn't one-shot level 2, and its attack speed is garbage,
Yep.
right? It's not good on level 3. It is good on level 4, but level 4 is not a problem for your lane.
Yes.
And then it's like pretty shit on 5 and 6. Well, if you upgrade it, it's okay on 5. If you're going to upgrade it, the placement's terrible. So like this, you have a carrier roll, right? But it's not a very stable roll. Does that make sense? Like if you get put behind by an early send
Yeah.
on this roll and actually leak like a reasonable amount, you're going to be like 4-1 for level 5. You're
Yes.
going to be leaking 8. And it'll just be horrible,
I
right?
have to overbuild to hold. Yes.
So I think this 3-0 on risk is just no good. I think stay 2-0, just get the sprite, get the
Sprite.
Maverick.
Mm.
It doesn't feel good to be 2-0, but in the end, you have still got a carry roll. So it's okay,
Yep.
right? It's okay to play the carry roll more stable. I guess the other option would be to like 1 income and upgrade it to engineer, but I'd just personally try and stay away from that because it's just 70 value of doing nothing on 5.
Yeah.
But this is super risky. Really, really risky. And it's also risky on 3 because the Warlock just doesn't add anything.
Okay.
So send on 2 and send on 3, I think you've got like a major issue this game.
Yep.
Okay. I don't like the placement. Oh, you gonna change it?
I have no clue what I did this game.
Okay. So placement's a bit better. I would personally do it off in this spot, the sprite. Because it's got 360 HP, but it's actually got 360 HP plus 15% because of the dodge chance.
Yep.
So, you can average that out. So it's not that squishy, and creeps are going to flank around here. So I would put the sprite here. That way it just tanks a little more on this flank. Does that make sense? Because if you put it here, the prisoner's kind of protecting it.
It's a kind of an aggro share then.
These two
damage
things
share.
are going to tank, and then the creeps start wrapping around, and all these creeps are going to hit the prisoner, hit the prisoner, hit the prisoner, and now they're going to hit the sprite. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You put the sprite here, it's going to walk forward slightly because it has a bit less range than the prisoner, 300 and 300. Okay.
They build a
think Sprite
line
walks a
and
bit
then
more
it's
though.
an aggro share.
But you sort of put it here.
Yep.
Probably moves forward a little bit, at least to get to start hitting the creeps that go to the wall and hit the first prisoner. So it'll be slightly behind, but only a little bit. Creeps will start to wrap around, and then instead of hitting the sprite once they sort of like get to here, they'll start hitting the sprite or focusing the sprite once they get to here. So it'll share basically more damage for the sprite, less damage for the prisoner, which I think is in your best interest. Especially level 3 where the sprite is fairly tanky. Fuck yes, Rans. This build is so much fun.
Yeah, we were a bit unhappy, but somehow it worked.
Oh, it's so much fun. Okay, you actually get really lucky with the furb on the sprite here. That's perfect. You always want sends on sprites because the dodge chance matters a lot more against the send.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's super lucky. Like, firstly, you get the furb, and secondly, you actually clear versus the furb. If that thing just focuses your prisoners, you probably can leak 5 or 6 creeps, which isn't the end of the world in fairness.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a pretty good result for you. And in the end, the Alchemist Mudman is the carry you needed, I suppose. So that's cool.
No, not really.
Yeah,
but
it's just like the other issue with this roll is Blaster needs increment help on 5 and 7 because it misses the 1-shot 5 and it misses the 2-shot 7 when there's a furb. So Captain is actually one of the best mixes for Blaster.
Yep.
But it's 2-0 for 7. Anyway, so you push what you can here, which is good because you hold 4. Prisoner is good on 4. Warlock is good on 4. It's a bit awkward because like you need the Maverick, but Maverick is definitely not always holding 5 here.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't cause the image issue, right? The mirror image issue depends on where it
So like
spawns.
Maverick is always just a bit RNG. Like if you get the real Maverick like sitting half on half, where like only a few groups can hit it, it's just the fattest fucking dopamine and it's
Yes.
amazing. But in the end, like it says you have 630 value, but
Yeah.
this almost doesn't exist. This doesn't really do much. Prisoner's like just kind of whatever. So like
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
just not doesn't end up being a very good build if that makes sense.
yes.
So I think just the most comfortable way I think for you to play this would be get the Sprite on 2, get the Maverick on 3, just like it's 2-0 on 3,
Mm.
but you shut your eyes and bear it because you need your roll to be in a good spot.
Mm.
Then you can either Maverick or Thunderbird on 5, like whichever you prefer. I'd probably just go Maverick because it's you want it on 8 anyway and it's way better on 6. So you end up with something like double Maverick Sprite, right?
Yeah.
And while it doesn't feel amazing, it's overbuildy, but
So you
at least you'll get all the creeps on your lane, right? You'll be in a stable sort of spot.
Yeah, so your idea behind is to take less risks and then going quite fat to mid game with Thunderbird's Troll Champion, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you look at this role and you don't need 4,000 value 15, right? Like if you have 3,600 value in
Yep.
15, you probably hold.
Yep.
Like that's just how it is.
Yep.
If you're able to keep the dead value to a minimum. I suppose the other option you had actually was probably perhaps the best option was actually to only keep one prisoner level 1 and then mix it with Sprite. Yeah, actually, come to think of it, I like that as the option. Prisoner Sprite level 1, like Sprite, or even 2 Sprites level 2, like Maverick 3.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would have been best.
Would you
Anyway,
place the sprite then behind the prisoner or diagonal? Or
I'd keep this placement.
the half spot at this placement? Okay.
I think this placement with Prisoner here and
Yeah.
Sprites there.
Okay, okay.
Anyway, I mean, I've only like thought about it now, so. But I think that actually would have been the best way to do it because that way you just don't have this second prisoner, which is just painful. Anyway, looking at your teammates quickly, you get the Shockwave. So he's pushed, has a TOT captain, it's not really holding. Rand's full YOLOing, which is hilarious, but yeah. And triple EA, you guys are sending here. Okay. So if your send here is a goal, you're going to be in a really good spot this game. Even if you leak a bit here. Because at least you're a bit more stable on 6, because this thing, even though it's bloody useless on 5, it is good on 6. So yeah, your Maverick, the real one, spawned pretty far back, and like all your damage is dead before it even tanks anything, which is pretty unlucky.
Yes.
But it's just kind of how it is with the build. I'm not that surprised, if I'm honest. So it just is what it is. It does suck you don't hold here, because if you got Rands as Lakes and mid, that would have been really nice for you.
Yes.
This is tons of time. And in the end, you still reach 7-2. 7-2 with tons of time with the immolation, and a ton of King Gold feels pretty good. We have no hold of 10. I think you're probably trying to hold 10 this game.
From my
Which
team,
I realize
right?
sounds odd, but with that leak on 5, the game just got really fat. Okay, so chances are what happens, right? This is big leak on 5, big time. Chances are they push what they can because they know, oh yeah, you've seen immolation, so if instead of like going for a big overbuild, we start taking greedy free holds instead, right? So you can see, yeah, this guy's 5-1, but he's ending on like 5 privateers probably, right? With some parasites. It's not a particularly strong hold. And so because you know that, it's just like, okay, we see their immolation, they're probably going to push a bit and be greedy because there was so much time, because they basically have to get back in the game. Means we probably get good king leaks to firm it, right?
Yep.
So if you choose to do that firm it, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
the game gets really, really fat because there's a lot of time and King Gold on 5, a lot of time and King Gold on 7 if you choose that ferment, which means your lane's in a really good spot. Which means you have the option to go ahead and damage 10 because you can even you can upgrade a Warlock and get a few Thunderbirds, second Maverick, you can even get a Mutant for 10. Nothing wrong with that when you fat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got the option to damage 10 this game because the game got fat. Quicker game, you don't have that option, but this game you do.
I heard about people telling me that you could try upping a mutant for 10. It's with the right adds, it's not that bad.
It's like decent damage on the boss.
Yeah.
Pretty bad versus mass, but if you can clear mass. Also, I was saying I don't like Troll Fighter here. I would just upgrade this Warlock.
Okay.
Instead, you've got enough gold to do it. Upgraded Warlock is 2-shot on level 8.
Yeah.
Which is convenient.
That's
like
good.
Troll Fighter's okay on 8, but it's honestly a pretty shitty unit. You're interested in having an upgraded Warlock for level 10. You're not interested in having a Troll Champion for level 10, I don't think. I really don't value the aura until like probably 14. Even well, it's good on 12 because of move speed actually. But I would say on 10 it's too expensive for what it does, considering the unit itself is relatively weak. So I wouldn't be excited to build a Troll Fighter here. I'd much rather just upgrade the Warlock.
So that might be a mistake, but I value it high for level 8 somehow.
Why?
Because I think it has of the armor and damage type.
Okay, so the armor and damage type, yeah, they're like reasonable on level 8. We have, look, 425 range, built towards the back. 300 range, 300 range, 300 range, 350 range, 400 range. So at the moment, these two guys are going to be on full health when everything else is dead, right?
Yeah.
On level 8, which means that you're not really using the armor type and the defensive stats in like a particularly relevant way.
Yeah, then you should
make sense.
place it
so
more
it's just
in
going to
front.
be 470 HP, like
pretty
sure
I
3 shots. 8 slow attack, like relatively slow attack speed, 3-shotting 8.
That's bad. I thought it 2
not
shots.
Not an overly good unit. And like once again, if it was a weaker game, I could understand you wanting to maybe put the Troll Fighter like directly in line with this prisoner. So like not diagonally, but like directly in line to get it tanking some damage early, but not getting killed. I could understand that for level 8, potentially as a flex option. But this game's fat. Like you don't really need to worry about level 8. You can probably be like 1100 value with 7-3.
That's good, yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about this. Oh, and in the end you actually sell it and push. Sorry, I just assumed it was safe to talk about it. Because it was like 2 seconds. There you go. I don't mind the push. It's obviously late.
Yeah, sometimes I plan ahead and sometimes I just don't.
Yeah, I would probably just have built because I wouldn't be confident about holding here.
Yeah.
On this setup, and I think it's relatively important that your lane holds. That being said, you're probably not getting feed from Rans. No, you're not. But I don't like leaking like 5-6 with rolls like this.
Yeah.
As I said, like it is a carry roll, but it's not overly stable because it's not great on 8. Like the fact that the game is fat means it's probably fine. I hate the 7-4. I hope you don't finish it. Means it's probably fine, but it's still
I think I finish it.
Not super comfortable. Okay, so you do finish it. You're just like, I'm not sure. It feels to me like you haven't sort of seen this roll and go like, hey, I'm going to carry this game.
No, I didn't.
So
absolutely
for me,
not.
I see Thunderbird with like any aura, and it's like, well, if I have a reasonable early game, I'm mid 15 on like 3600 value. 3600 value isn't that hard to get on 15 with 7-5. Realistically, it's not that hard. So as soon as the game gets fat like this, right, with the big time on 5, and I mean, if you decide to skip 7 completely, it doesn't get quite as fat. So I kind of think that's a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, we sent. I think we sent, but I'm not sure. But I think we sent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't sent yet.
Mm-hmm.
None of you have wood. Maybe you do a furb or something. But yeah, with the game getting relatively fat, then it's really, really easy to get. So then, game getting fatter, you can start building essentially less dead value. So you don't need the second Maverick. Second Maverick can be good to like bridge you through level 8, but if you can do it, if you can hold level 8 with Thunderbirds instead, it's better. Anyway, so
That's interesting, cause my view on that role was totally different. Yep.
What does this role look like to you then? With the 2 prisoners.
I just try to take risks and YOLO as hard as I can. I think, yeah.
Fair enough. Because for me, right, you've got Blaster no ads on free.
Yeah.
Which, like, I just would never trust it to carry,
No,
basically.
you can't,
like, you
can't
rerolled
trust
and
it.
the ads are actually nice, honestly. Like Captain Parasite. Those are some of the better ads for Blaster for sure. So that's nice, but you don't know that level 1. Elite Archer, I just always assume EA ends up 7-7 because 90% of the time it does.
Yep.
And then Rands is playing like Polar Sky Dragon.
Yeah.
So like essentially Rands is doing your job. Or what you think your job is this game, right? He's full YOLOing, taking all the risks, blah blah blah. You can sit there and debate for 20 years about whether that's fucking stupid with Butcher or whether it actually makes sense. It doesn't really matter. In the end, he's decided to do it. So that means like this suddenly becomes the only role that is good on 15.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. I thought you would play like zombie, egg, tribesman, polar bear or something.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Rancy is actually a very, very good builder.
Yep, it worked out, but we were all expecting him to go zombie, so...
Yeah. Anyway, it's a 3-shot blaster. Feels terrible, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, like looking at this is probably 40 King Licks with Fermit, 25, 30 King Licks with Fub. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to shit on the call or anything. But you can see that, like, you definitely had the option to make them King Lake.
Yeah. And the King also was low HP when the creeps hit, so...
Yeah.
Could have gotten
like,
one heal for sure.
It's basically a question of, do you want, in this sort of spot, whether you send on 7 or not, do you want the game to be fatter or do you want the game to be not so fat? Right? If you want the game to be a little less fat, then you maybe skip and keep your own heal.
Yeah.
If you want the game to be fatter, you can send and trade heals, right?
Yep.
Like, your role definitely wants the game to be fatter.
Wants the game to be fatter.
This role doesn't really care.
He's okay.
This role doesn't really care. This role really wants the game to be fatter, because if he's going to be relevant in the mid game, he needs butchers, which means he needs income because he's got a lot of value that is not butcher.
Yep.
So I'd say fat game, probably what you're looking for, especially given that things like privateer on their lanes, which generally function a little bit better in a faster game because it falls off. If it's privateer carry roll, then yeah, it might want. Can't know that yet.
True, yeah.
What do you do? Maverick, sure.
Could have upped the mutant, maybe.
Okay. Same story about this troll fighter.
Yes.
We talked about before. I would still probably upgrade the warlock.
Yeah.
Damage 10 with this roll. But yeah, second Maverick, like, you have to do the Maverick because you went 7-4. It's a bit unfortunate because I think it would be better if you get away without the Maverick. As you can see, this troll 3-shotting is just last unit alive. You know, it was always going to look like that. It's just not ideal.
The level 8 has 200 something HP, right? 215? No,
178. Troll does like 60 to 70 damage or something.
Up troll does 60 to 70? Yeah, then it always reshots. And if you up it, does it... if you up it, maybe 2 shots?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
think I've had it upgraded for 8 like twice. I really try and stay away from the unit early. I'd probably upgrade the Warlock or do that. I don't know. I think either way is fine. Anyway,
But
so you get the early push, which is like good, but once again, probably leaking here. I would expect you're leaking here because you got a lot of medium armor.
yeah,
Yeah,
I leak
7/6, okay.
quite a lot.
So you've fully sacked your carry potential. It's just out the window completely. Means you probably need a 14 game. But 14's like a little bit difficult to make happen in the fatter games.
If I
Because honestly, it's
remember,
not that hard to hold 14.
if I remember correctly, the game goes 15 and I still go mid.
Crazy.
If I remember it correctly, but I'm not sure. But
Alright.
I think that's really, your input is really good, because that's the reason why we do the coaching, right? Is like
Scott, man. What a legend.
interesting to see, yeah. Interesting to see how different two people's first look can be on a role, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I look at that role and it's like, it's definitely not like the classic sort of carry role where it's just mid every level.
Yeah.
It's not stable, like, because it's vulnerable to sends potentially like 2, 3, 5.
Yep.
As in, like, it gets the send and it leaks, and then it has trouble holding the next levels, or it is severely reduced in push.
Yes.
By the sends potentially, and it's not very good on level 8. So it makes it like difficult to play, not very stable. But it's like if you get a good game, or the game in general is fat and you don't get completely just dicked by sends, then you can definitely go mid on send levels, and like serious mid. Anyway, so you go 7/7, but you do have perfect gold for Troll Champion Thunderbird. You're probably fine 11. Okay, you just stay 7/6. I think that's good, honestly. Like, in this spot with 130 income, I'd probably be thinking I'm clearing 15 rather than going mid.
Yeah, yeah.
But Agen's potentially getting lumber taxed.
Yeah, I think if I
so
push...
they got 7/4, 7/3, 7/5, and potential lumber tax, so they don't actually have a lot of lumber.
Yep. I think if I would go 7/7 here, then I would have killed it completely, because I maybe league 11/12, right? And miss out from a lot of gold.
I think you'd like 11. I think you might be okay on 12, potentially, actually.
Yeah, but 13 is also a rip, I think.
But yeah. Anyway, it's good to say 7/6 for sure. Like, looking at their lanes as well, I mean, you can't have a full look early, but even on Arena, you can have like an idea of who has which units. But it's like, so you see, okay, Suicide Act or whatever, or Full Push Act or whatever. I was looking for the bloody the anti-stock button.
Yes, it's
so you
not
see
there.
Like, okay, Dark Priest, like relatively
That's
fat Dark
Disciple
Priest lane.
Dark Priest.
Yeah, it's a relatively fat Dark Priest lane, but he doesn't really have frontline, which means he's not going to be like big mid at this stage,
Yep.
especially with shitty Abno placement.
Yep.
Really bad placement. And you see like full fucking dead value, like committed to the dead value.
And Hydra.
Somewhat low income, and then again, full dead value.
Yep.
So you're thinking like, all right, how much slumber do we need to kill them on 15? Not much. How much slumber did we bank on 10? Yeah, a little bit.
Nah,
I wouldn't be too stressed.
not that
And I mean,
much.
Orange is going to be able to cover like 3, probably cover 2 behemoths, maybe only cover 1. I don't know. Mass Disciples goes Revenants. I would definitely go Revenants over Mass Disciple. Might actually mid.
Yeah, he goes for Revenants.
I don't think there's a lot of upside to Disciple with this sort of setup. Could do something like one Neo tank in front, potentially even a Pirate of Truth. But TOT is such effective frontline that you don't need a hell of a... Anyway, focus a bit more in your lane.
So I would
And
say...
pretty much just go full Thunderbirds.
Yeah, I do. The result is now kind of the same, but the approach was totally different.
Yeah, I mean, and in the end, like, when you get that early send, you get to push a lot more and feel really comfortable. And at some point, you just got to be like, look, if they send, I'm going to get fucked. Like, if they go straight 4, straight 5, like, there's just not a lot you can do about that.
No.
But I would definitely want to feel stable, at least on level 3, particularly because that's not a good level for Maverick and Sprite and all that. A little bit weak.
Yeah.
Anyway. Go for Mutant. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would probably go for this one. Because Mutant is like your behemoth killer. So this one's not going to tank anyway. Like, everything's just going to run in front of it. It's going to tank nothing on a 15 when the sends happen. And the creeps come a little bit more slowly, so I really wouldn't bother doing the one in front personally. I'd just do the one in the back and let it actually kill the behemoth and stay alive to help kill the sends with the warlocks, rather than try and get it to tank anything.
Okay.
I'd actually be happy if it was full HP in the end. Because Thunderbird is like really good at clearing the creeps, but obviously with a bit of AoE, it's not super efficient against the Philo Kraken, whatever. And because you got the single target armor reduction, like that mutant is pretty valuable. So if I were you, I'd probably do like 2 warlocks, 1 mutant, rest Thunderbirds. Would have done that mutant, but whatever. See Juice here. You scared of Ascend?
I think so.
I wouldn't have juiced here personally.
Yeah.
3k value, but looking at your lanes, like 2 blasters, TOT, Neo tank, that's enough to do like some clear. He won't like super hard disciple damages sends, even though I think he shouldn't have any disciples on his lane. He does, which is a little better on 14. And then Rans is just like Rans is mid.
Yeah.
It's not a conversation.
Definitely.
Rans is mid 14. Then you have 3 heals with split leak from the EA leaking fast. 3 heal shockwave, like against fuck all push, you know. On Arena, what was it? It was 7-4, 7-3, 7-5, and 7-9 lumber tax.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure he's getting taxed anymore because he has 200 income. But he's definitely getting taxed on 11. Or he should have been getting taxed on 11.
Yeah. He was less than 1 point, and you need 1.1k value, I think.
Yeah.
Something around that.
Anyway, so let's watch the final build. Alright, fair enough. Oh, I think I would have done another upgraded Warlock, but you can get away with just one. I'd be worried about this one getting sniped, though, personally, because it is kind of forwards.
Yeah, true. Can go for one
it's okay,
safety
if it stays
Warlock.
alive, it's good. But if the sends are like over this right-hand side, then it potentially dies somewhat early. That is a...
I think it could die early here now, because they're getting close to it.
Might.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't survive till the sends.
Oh, it does.
It does?
It does survive.
Okay.
Slightly lucky, but hey. I will say you did not have the most aggressive Fire Lord. I was thinking you had a Behemoth.
Again, lucky.
Yeah, a little bit, but mid is mid.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, you can just see how, like, just how much damage the bloody Thunderbirds output. They don't need much. I feel like any aura with Thunderbird is just so much damage. It loves Troll Champion as well. It really likes attack speed.
Helicopter. Maybe Dark Mage.
It likes the damage, but I reckon more than anything, it loves the attack speed. Dark Mage, Helicopter, Troll Champion, Parasite. Yeah, good mid for sure. And like the actual build for 15 was totally fine. The placement was correct. It's good that you didn't try and do like too much in the way of frontline because it's just not something your build needed.
Yeah,
Like
somebody.
Thunderbird functions as frontline with
Yeah.
this sort of value when you have auras and that, auras and a bit of support. Like, because you had support from the Warlock, even support from the Mutant, although I don't think the placement for the Mutant really let it do its job. It kind of became frontline. That's not the end of the world. It's not horrible at doing that.
Yeah. So,
And in the end, I mean, technically, your Mutant placement was perfect because the thing the Mutant really helps with is sniping the Behemoth. And if you don't get a Behemoth, then you may as well use it to tank.
yeah, but you never know that.
I mean, it's one of those things you probably want to plan for the worst case scenario in that sense, which is like, okay, I see this roll and I want to go mid verse Firelord, 2 Krakens, Behemoth.
Oh, no.
Is that like that should be the send you expect? I feel like
Not in this game, but
not in this game, indeed.
in general, yes.
I mean, for sure, once like level 10 rolls around and you see that push, and it's like, okay, I probably get 1 crack. But just like from early on in the game, right, thinking like, okay, like how do I want to carry? Like,
Yeah.
what sort of value am I looking for? How greedy do I want to play? Blah blah blah. It's like, well, probably want my build to go mid against this. So how do I start getting towards that point, or like how do I give myself the best chance of getting to that point? If that's what you want to do in that game, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just want to go 7-7 and leak for your team and just be happy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that either, of course, but not with that role.
No, I wanted to go mid on 15 if the game goes to 15, and yeah, that
was successful.
Yeah.
Anyway, I reckon that might do it for me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.
I personally, you give me lots of good input again that I can work with. Yep.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man.
Good. Then guys, thank you epicdeath. Thank you everyone else for watching, and we see us in the next video. Goodbye.